What if I told you that 300 people with clay pots and trumpets took on an army of over 100,000 soldiers? It sounds completely insane, but this actually happened. This is the story of one of the wildest victories of all time, and was led by a terrified farmer. For 7 straight years, the nation of Israel was getting absolutely destroyed. An enemy army, the Midianites, would show up every single harvest and steal all their food. People were literally starving, hiding in caves just to stay alive. So in the middle of all this chaos, an angel shows up to find a guy named Gideon. But Gideon isn't some epic warrior. He's a farmer from a poor family. And he's so scared of the Midianites, he's literally hiding in a wine press just to get a little bit of food. The angel walks up and says, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Gideon's response was basically, "Are you kidding me? If God is with us, why is everything so terrible? Where are the miracles?" He thought he was the weakest person from the weakest family. But God's message was simple. You are going to save Israel. Gideon was so freaked out he asked for a sign, and God literally answered by making fire shoot out a rock and burn up his offering. This was only the first step in Gideon's crazy journey. Before Gideon could even think about fighting an enemy army, God gave him his first challenge: tear down the altar to a false god in his own hometown. Gideon was so terrified of what his neighbors would do that he literally did it in the middle of the night. This was his first real test, and he passed. With his confidence building, Gideon gathered an army. He got 32,000 soldiers ready to fight. But they were facing a Midianite army of 135,000. They were already outnumbered more than 4 to 1. And right then, God told Gideon something that makes no military sense. You have too many men. God said that if they won with 32,000 soldiers, they would just brag about how strong they were. The victory needed to be so unbelievable that only God could get the credit. And this is where things get really crazy. First, God told Gideon to send home anyone who was scared. Gideon made the announcement, and 22,000 men just turned around and left. He was down to only 10,000. The odds went from bad to completely insane. But God looked at the 10,000 men and said, there are still too many. So, for the final test, God told Gideon to take them to a river. He said he would choose the army based on how they drank water. I'm not even joking. Most of the men knelt down and put their faces right in the water to drink. But a small group of 300 scooped the water with their hands and brought it to their mouths. Staying alert, God's final decision was in: send home everyone who knelt down. Only the 300 who scooped the water would stay. He was now left with 300 men to fight 135,000. This wasn't an army anymore. It was a suicide mission, but it was God's army. The night before the impossible battle, God sent Gideon to sneak into the enemy camp one last time. While he was there, Gideon overheard a soldier telling his friend about a dream he had, where a loaf of bread rolled down and flattened a tent. The friend said, "This is the sword of Gideon. God has given us to him." The second Gideon heard this, all his fear was gone. He ran back to his 300 men and revealed God's insane battle plan. He gave every single man a trumpet, an empty clay pot, and a torch to hide inside it. He split them into 3 teams and surrounded the massive enemy camp in the dead of night. On Gideon's signal, the entire night just exploded. All 300 men blew their trumpets, smashed their clay pots, held their torches in the air, and screamed, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon." The result was pure chaos. The massive Midianite army woke up to terrifying lights and the sounds of trumpets coming from every direction. They were thrown into a complete panic, thinking they were being attacked by a gigantic army. In the darkness and confusion, they literally started attacking and killing each other. The entire 135,000-man army ran for their lives, destroying themselves without Gideon's 300 men even lifting a sword. It was a victory won by following a plan that made zero human sense. Gideon's story is an insane reminder that even when the odds feel impossible, amazing things can happen when you have faith. In fact, it's usually in our biggest weakness that the craziest strength is revealed. If you thought this story was as insane as I did, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss what we do next. And tell me in the comments what other crazy Bible stories you want to see.